one. So let's make sure, and we're just talking about the job that literary criticism does. And literary criticism is when a scholar has a theory that they're trying to get out there. Now, when a scholar like myself is writing an article, it's supposed to be a new theory. It's supposed to be a theory about something that people haven't necessarily observed about that piece of writing before. Now, if you're the first person to write about a piece, that's pretty easy. You can state the obvious stuff. But as more and more people write about, say, Ellison's Battle Royale or Invisible Man, we keep needing new theories about it. And the theories that we see can be like, okay, I'm going to talk about invisibility here. And I have something to say about invisibility. Or I have something to say about them being treated like circus people. Or I'm going to talk about how they were equated with animals. Or I'm going to talk about let's say we're talking about Amy Tan. I'm going to be talking about the mother-daughter relationship and how that affects how we read the essay. And so they have to have a theory. So we're not getting that from a biography piece. We got the biography piece from a biography piece. We're not getting that from an encyclopedia. You might get good observations about the literature from those kinds of things, but that's not what we're here for. When we're looking for literary criticism, we are not looking for an overview of what everybody in the world has said about it. We are not looking for biography. We are not looking for how this fits into their work overall as an artist. We are looking specifically for theories that scholars like myself have put out there about these pieces and how we can bring those into the conversation we're trying to have here. Okay, so going back into that discussion board, I want to say that people overall did a good job finding sources. I'm gonna sort of notice a few. Amelia, your choices for Gilman were good. They were the things probably that I would have picked. You weren't the only one, but you were one that I remember as being as having those excellent choices for the Gilman. Okay. Let's see, who's doing Ellison that had them? Dejanay, I think you had some pieces for Ellison. You're doing Ellison, right? Okay, I think Dejanay had some pieces for the Ellison that were good. I think D'Angelo had pieces for the Ellison that were good. If I wrote good sources on yours, that means it was good. Okay. If I told you to go back and look for different sources, don't go immediately back to the database. If you're doing Ellison, please go to the sample essay and see if you can use the titles that he puts in his works cited list to give you a hint there. Because he found 2 articles that were excellent in the sample essay, and there's nothing saying you can't look for those articles and find them and read them yourself. Okay. Now, I felt like the people who were working with Amy Tan and Alice Walker did okay with finding their articles, so I'm not really worried about that. But there were some people working on Ellison who found things that were either encyclopedias or biographies, and that's not what we're working for, okay? So we don't want an overview. We don't want generic, something that says, you know, where the title of it is literary criticism. I worry that that's written either by or for students specifically. We're looking for something that's written by somebody like me, who's a scholar and publishing in their field, right? So again, if you're working on Ellison and I've asked you to find better sources, go to the sample student essay and get the titles of the literary criticism he uses, and then go to the database and see if you can locate those titles, okay? Does that make sense? Does anybody have questions about the feedback that they got for that discussion board or about the sources that they chose? There were a couple of people where I didn't have links and I couldn't look. And so you might need to try again sending me a working link or send me the title. What was that, Riley? Okay, fantastic. And then I can check them. I just want to make sure people are working with good sources, because if you're working with good sources, your work will be good. Now, so I started out with this stuff that's grouchy. I need you to use the right kind of sources. But I have to say that for the most part, your writing about sources has been really strong. I've been seeing a lot of the source paragraphs from the biography and the cultural criticism. I mean, the cultural context and historical context, those are really strong. And I've been pleased with those overall. I've been pleased with what I'm seeing. If I asked you to stay on for some coaching with that, definitely stay on and I'll walk you through it. But you're using the model appropriately in terms of source use, and that's going really well. Okay? All right. Questions about what you're trying to write this week? And sometimes those are correct, and sometimes they're not correct. So the library format gives you what you need to get formatting, but sometimes it hasn't capitalized the title. Sometimes it puts in information that we wouldn't put in a format. So I would start by copying and pasting what's there and then taking a look at the format that you've been given and just kind of whittling it down to what matches the format that you've been given. Does that make sense? Okay, because a lot of times they have extra information in there that you don't need. They have volume and issue number in a format that's not what you need, and that sort of thing. Sometimes they don't even capitalize the title appropriately. So it's a start, but then copy it, paste it, and then look at the format from the handout. And that's on the citation generator website, and just compare and make sure that you're matching the format. Okay. Okay. Sometimes they're right. You just can't kind of count on them to be consistently right. And that's the tricky part. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's a great question. Let's go on to, I answer all of my questions about citations by Googling how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to record, no, I don't need to record that. I'm going to do a screen share, share the screen, and then if you can see my screen, let's go to Google. Google is a beautiful thing if you know what you're looking for when you get a bunch of hits. If you don't know what to look for when you get a bunch of hits, it's dangerous. But MLA citation for online PDF. How to cite a citation. Let's see. Do I want that one? No, I want Purdue. Haha. All right. So interview, personal interviews, speeches, published, painting, photograph, song or album, films or movies, podcasts. Okay, digital files, PDFs, MP3s, and JPEGs. Okay, so a lot of your documents, I think the Alice Walker is actually a website and not a PDF, but the others are online PDFs. Okay, and so you work with the author and the title and the year published if possible, and then what kind of file it is. So let's take what we have here, determine the type. We're going to take this information and then we're going to copy it into a Word document. And then let's work with one of our PDFs and see if we can plug it in and make it match, okay? Because again, finding the format and then making your information plug into that format is difficult. So I'm going to do the Gilman because I actually know that it's harder than any of the other ones. So let's get to that yellow wallpaper PDF. I think it's this one. Okay. Does that look correct? Does that look familiar? Okay. So now for some of this, we actually have to look at the website up above to know what this is from. So this is actually from nih.gov NLM. So we might need to actually go to this website without the other. So I'm going to actually, hold on. Yeah. Okay, so this tells us a little bit more about this site, which is kind of interesting. This is the National Library of Medicine by NIH, which is, if we look at the NIH National Literature. Okay, so NLM is the National Library of Medicine. So we have to know that when we're talking about the yellow wallpaper. Let me get back to the yellow wallpaper. Okay, so now we have a few other things that we need to know, that this was sitting in a nursery. I'm going to scroll all the way to the end, which is often where a lot of the publishing information is. It doesn't tell us a date. So again, these things can be tricky. And let's see if digital documents, let's see if we can examine it at all. No. Okay. So one of the other things that you can do is, and I know this seems like a lot of running around for information, but this is what you do. Yellow Wallpaper's general publication date was, let's see, 1892. So 1892. Now that's not when, originally, but 1892, I'm making a note. And we have National Library of Medicine as our source, right? So now we go to our pattern and we're going, who's our author? So we start with the author whenever we have one. So who's our author? And I know it says Stetson on the thing, but what if I asked you to call her? Gilman. And what's the title of the piece? Right, the yellow wallpaper. Good. And make sure that you copy it exactly as it appears. So notice it has that hyphen between wall and paper. Okay, we don't usually do it that way, but the author did, so we try to match that. So we do capital V, capital yellow, capital wall, hyphen, capital paper. and then what? Period, end quote. When was this published originally? What did we say for the year? 1892, right? And then a period after that. Where was it published again? Right, National Library of Medicine. And then what do we need after that? We need what kind of a file it is, right? Ta-da. Now, it also has, in this one, it has the URL. So a URL might not be a bad idea there. It's after the PDF. So if we were doing that, I might copy this in this case. And it would look like that, which is, and then when you're formatting it and you're trying to do the hanging indent, make sure it's all in there correctly, and then hit your cursor. And then you do need to split that up, which is awkward. And then you actually want to remove the hyperlink, okay? When it's split like that, okay? That's a lot. Notice that they take, what's that? You can, but you've accessed it a number of times. Also, you'll notice that they took out the beginning stuff for that. And if that makes it a little easier to split, which it does, that can help as well. Okay. Now, I would love to tell you that there's one way to do this correctly, but you can see that they've done it one way here and a different way here. If I'm seeing you do National Library of Medicine, PDF, accessed, 28, 2020, that's fine. I wish I could tell you that, well, I wish I could tell you that there's one thing that would always get you the correct answer, but I have done things absolutely looking at my handbook and sent them off to a journal for publication, and they're like, this isn't the right format, use this one. I'm like, okay, right? So there's a little bit of leeway, and you guys are sophomores in college, or some of you freshmen in college, or some of you still in high school. And if you're giving me this, what I'm showing you here on the screen, you're showing an ability to follow a pattern and a format, and I'm okay with it, even if it's a little different than how somebody else might have done it, or if it's not exactly ready for publication. I just want to make sure that you know how to format them basically, right? And if you have a format that follows one of the patterns that we looked at, we're good, okay? Okay, I will add this information to, and I'll keep the Gilman on there and probably add the Ellison and the Tan are going to be the same thing. You might need to do a little extra work online to find out who's sponsoring that PDF or publishing that PDF. If they don't give you a date that, like if the National Library of Medicine doesn't give you a date that they published it, use the date it was originally published, and just use that. But I think most of them, for most of them, this date will be the date that appears on the website, that the website published it. We just don't have that here, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, I did the weirdest one as the example because it had the most stuff that I had to look up and check on. I think the others are a little more straightforward, okay? All right, and I know that the Walker is just a website. Huh? So the link is broken right now in Blackboard? Okay, let's take a look at that because that's something we need to deal with as a group. Cancel, I just need to minimize it. Okay, so let's go to our course readings and our short story unit readings. And it's the Ellison that's doing that. Okay. Okay, it's WICNet. It's a Brunswick Schools intranet. So just say that it came from WICNet. Yeah, WICNet. Yeah. But it's also looks like it was what about this? Have we looked at this? Because this seems like its own thing. So let's again, sometimes you have to look at what's in your search bar. And this is the HCC Learning Web, the Houston Community College Learning Web that's actually published this. Do you see what I did to find that? So we're here in Battle Royale, and I'm ignoring this because that's a broken link, but that's not who published it. Look up at the top. This is who's publishing it up here, right? And to find that, what I did was I took the first part of it and I went to see where that was. And it gave me that Houston Community College Learning Net, okay? And that's one of the faculty members, Selena Anderson, is a professor there, right? So that's the HCC, the Houston Community College Learning Web. And that's who published this version of this. Thank you to that professor from Houston Community College. Yes? Okay. And the date of it, let's see if we have one down at the bottom. We do not. So again, it's not 1999. Okay, so 1952 for the Ellison, right? Well, actually it says had published a section of the book in 1947, the famous Battle Royale scene. So 1947 is your date for Battle Royale, okay? And then we have Houston Community College Learning Web for who's publishing it, okay? So if we're going to go back to that Word document, we can walk through it. We walked through the Gilman. We can walk through this one. We can walk through the Tan and the Walker as well if we need to. So we would do Ellison. And then what? What's next? And then what? 19 what? 1947. And then what? And then what? Look up above. PDF and then access, etc. Right? Okay. Do we need to look at the Tan? Okay, so we have the tan, and we've got to, again, we're looking at this to see what this is. Control C, put it over here, Control V, and see what we find. This is the Radnor Township School District published this PDF. Cool for them. Okay, and we're doing this the same way every time. All right, so, and then it looks like we're going to need to find out when Two Kinds was published. So once again, just Amy Tan, Two Kinds publish date. Originally published in 1989. Okay, so we head back here and we do Tan, Amy, what's next? $19.89, and then what's next? We probably have to look at it again. Radnor Township School District. And then what? PDF, and then what? Access, right. Let's look at the walker. I don't want to leave anybody out. That's rude. All right, so let's get here and let's go to Alice Walker. All right, and we can see up here. Again, I'm copying it to see what the larger website is without the specific thing. I'm gonna go back to it, get back to here. Oh, this is from WordPress. We're from WordPress, so that's easy. That's right in there. Okay. So Alice Walker short story. It's a PDF, but there's a lot of information before we get to the PDF this time, including, let's see if we have a date that it was published. Scroll to the bottom because again, that's usually where it's going to be. There's a lot of teaching stuff in here. And it doesn't have it. Okay. So, all right, so we grab everyday use, vacation date, 1973. So somebody walk me through it. Tell me what I'm writing here. Asia, what am I writing here? Then what? And then what? Okay, anybody remember the date? 73. And then what? D'Angelo, what's next? You're muted. That's it. And then what? Yep, there we go. All right, so these are not hard. But they do take a little bit of fishing around. to make sure you know all the information for where they come from. Okay, good. And we got that recorded. Hot dog. All right. That was a really good question. Are there other questions? Because that one, I'd say it led us down a rabbit hole, but that was the most valuable rabbit hole we've been down in a while. So thank you for that question. Other questions? What's our next rabbit hole? Did you get the handout with the other two patterns? You have access to that? It posted? Let's check. Oh, you did get it? Okay. All right, let me double check it just because I like to double check things. Let's go here into Blackboard. It should be in week 11. I just like to make sure things are there because if they are not there, then I need to put them there. Okay, so, and make sure everybody sees them as well. So in week 11, make sure you know all your resources. Handout works cited patterns for short story analysis. I'm going to go ahead and edit this. And I'm going to go ahead and open this. And I'm just going to copy and paste what we just did into the bottom of this and then save it and re-up it. Okay, just so that the work that we just did is here. Okay, so the work that we just did here. Control-C and get that over here. Enable editing. I know it's tiny. I'll make it bigger. You can watch me do. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need that. That's a Word file. We don't need that. There's one of the PDFs. I'm actually going to, yeah, we'll keep that there. And then we'll keep the 4 that we had. Okay? Does that work? All right, so let me do a quick save as. One and two. Make sure that I save it as updated. And just take me one more second. I can't see which one. There's the one. Okay, so we've fixed that. So now that has what we just did together. All right. Other questions? All right, I'm actually gonna just take a minute to talk to you about registering for spring classes. and what you're looking for and the different course formats and that sort of thing, to make sure that you know what you're doing when you're registering, you know how to register, and you know that it's time to register. So I don't think we need to record all of this, but